Okay, here we go. Okay, so for a portraiture, it's capturing the personality of a person, and there's certain things that you want to think about as you're doing portraiture, such as lighting, background, clothing. Especially, we don't want your model wearing like a Niles West soccer hoodie. That is so going to take away from the photo and what their poses are. This is also where you're gonna want to get collaborative. A lot, like, I am so awkward if people ask me to model for that. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm the worst model ever. And you probably know your friends that are like really good at modeling. Those are the people you want to photograph. Especially if they can provoke emotion in the viewer. I don't know if you guys have ever seen oh my gosh, it was like the Tyra Banks, America's Next Top Model, and she's like, I want you to smile, where you like smile with your eyes. So like kind of giving your model those instructions are going to help. The other best tip and trick I can give you is to literally go on Pinterest or Instagram, start screenshotting poses that you like, so that when you're photographing your model, like if they're awkward, you can be like, okay, do this, do that. And giving them some poses is going to make it a much better experience. But again, unless you have that friend that's just like an awesome model. um Composition, so that this is something I'm starting to see in some of your photos, and I want to push you a little more, where you're taking like all the photos from standing height and you're not pushing your composition with like rule of thirds, extreme rule of thirds. So really start thinking about that, especially when you guys are in the portrait studio. You guys are taking every photo like from the camera on the tripod, and you're not moving at all. So you need to move the camera more, especially if you're in the portrait studio. What are angles that are great? What colors, what emotions can provoke mood? And how are you going to draw out that inner character? So, why is it important to collaborate with your subject? Now, there are some photographers that do a great job with this, and some photographers that hate it. So, they just do self portraiture so they don't have to collaborate with anyone. That might be you. That's more me. Even though I hate being in front of the camera, I'd rather photograph myself than have to deal with photographing people. So, you're going to be able to choose. So Annie Leibovitz, she is probably one of the most known photographers out there. She is known for collaborating with famous people. And you're not like famous until Annie Leibovitz photographs you. So if anyone's a Kardashian fan, there was an episode where Annie Leibovitz is going to photograph Kim and Kanye, and like Courtney or Chloe were having like a meltdown, and Kim's like, but you guys, Annie Leibovitz is photographing me. And they're like, what? Like, who cares? She's like, no, no, no. Like, it was a big deal to Kim because now she's like a real celebrity because Annie Leibovitz is photographing her. So she was the chief photographer for Rolling Stone magazine in the 1970s. She also worked as a feature portrait photographer for Vanity Fair. And she got to photograph the Queen, RIP. And I'll show you guys that clip. She also did Disney's Year of a Million Dreams. So what she would do is she would photograph celebrities as Disney characters. So this was Taylor Swift as Rapunzel. Here we have J Lo and Mark Anthony as oh my gosh, Jasmine and Aladdin. Julianne Moore as Ariel, and then this is Michael Phelps as a merman. And this is Annie Leibovitz photographing him like in an underwater um container essentially, but then obviously everything was photoshopped in post production. So there's a few videos that I really like, so you guys can kind of see how Annie Leibovitz works with her models and like how collaborative she is. So here we go. And that's the final one in post-production. Ah. Okay, so she also, if you guys know Vanity Fair magazine, a lot of times the covers or they have like a long page that like centerfold kind of thing that unfolds into a longer picture is what I'm trying to say. I don't know what the word of it. So and she always does that. So she always brings everyone together and then she photographs them for Vanity Fair. And I'm sure you guys know some of these people, hopefully, maybe. But usually she'll keep them all in like a similar color as well. She did this very famous photograph of Leonardo DiCaprio when he was just getting his start. This looks like might be after Titanic or before Titanic. And then this is the one she did of the Queen. So this one is fun.
Annie Leibovitz and her 11 assistants
11.
spent 3 weeks preparing for the half-hour shoot. But the Queen's elaborate costume has taken longer than expected to put on. The start of the session has been delayed by 15 minutes. She will be wearing the full regalia of the ancient Order of the Garter, complete with tiara. Few royal outfits could be more complicated or cumbersome.
I'm not changing anything. I've done enough dressing like this. Thank you very much.
This is my extraordinary crew that we are so glad to be here today with you. And this is my daughter Sarah.
Yes.
Can you? Let's
I'm
get to.
sorry, I can't stay very long.
Yes, let's get to work.
It's getting such a lot now.
I'm so sorry. So sorry.
I can't.
Even with time so tight, Annie Leibovitz has planned a number of different setups. She steers the Queen to a bench in the White Drawing Room.
Your Majesty, you stick to your leg this. We'll do the rest. Beautiful. And Angela, do you want and Michael, you want to help us with the draping?
The complex garter robes are adjusted by the Queen's dresser, but Annie Leibovitz wants a last-minute change.
I think it will look better without the crown. I've heard you to do your own hair, which I believe is so amazing. Your own hair and makeup. Could we try it without the crown? It will look better, less dressy, because the garter robe is so dressy.
What do you think this is?
What I mean is, if you take the crown off, just for a couple frames.
If you take the tiara off
Yes,
and put it back on.
you can't.
No.
Okay. Well, maybe. I have an idea. Let's take a couple frames with it on, and then we'll take it off and leave it off for the rest of the shooting. Is that okay?
Well, I can't get back to the tidy my hair.
And Your Majesty, I'm going to ask you to just look to your left and a little more.
Photographer and monarch are soon hard at work, seeking an original take on one of the world's most familiar faces.
And right after you can. Sorry.
For Annie Leibovitz, it's a chance to portray the mystique of British monarchy, for the royal household, to launch the American state visit with the most striking set of images.
Okay, so you can see how sometimes you're going to ask your model to do something, and sometimes they're going to be like, I'm not doing that. I love that she's like, less dressy, but 11 weeks for 30 minutes with the Queen. That is insane. Oh, let me move on. And then this was the final picture, which is absolutely gorgeous. You have that window lighting coming in, and illuminated beautifully. They larged up the field, obviously, to show all the detail. All right. So the first thing that you can do for this is photograph generations. So by generations, it's very, very broad. It means you can photograph anyone from a newborn baby to your great great grandma. So, and anywhere in between. And one of the people that's most well known for that is Sally Mann. So Sally Mann, so she did portraits of her kids growing up. And she was really intrigued by kind of that, like when kids want to be older than they are and that transition between childhood and adulthood. And she liked to portray her child's innocence. And also, like Sally Mann grew up on a farm. Her kids grew up on the same farm. And so what happened is when you're on a farm, like she's like, I ran around naked all the time. My kids ran around naked all the time. So it's not like I'd like tell them to put their clothes on in order to shoot their photos. And then what happened is then everyone went crazy about it because they're like, "Oh my god, this is like child pornography," and she's like, "No, I'm just like photographing my kids, how they are in the natural element." But it was like very controversial at the time. But again, so these are all her kids as they're growing up, and she is one of the most well-known photographers. She's also gone through like various transitional parts in her photography, and I think that's what's cool when you like if you become a professional photographer. Like what I shot in high school and college is not at all what I shoot now. So the stuff that she was so I got to see her talk, and she was doing her work on photographing people like from the South, and so that was very different than photographing her kids on a farm. So, that was kind of part of her journey. And so again, the photographs were again, many critics were very against it, but she was like, this is the reality of the situation of my life, and I'm photographing my kids as they are. But very controversial. And so one of the like best quotes about what she tried to do is capture this 1 foot in adulthood, or 1 foot in childhood and 1 foot in the adult world. And I like her for you guys too, because I'm sure you have like siblings that are littler, or even you guys like that transitional period of like you don't quite want all the adult responsibilities that come with being adult, but like you also can't wait to be an adult and be on your own. So you guys are even like transitioning right now between that like childhood and adulthood, and like acting older than you are, but also like paying taxes sucks, responsibility and all that stuff. But this is like, and so this is her daughter with a candy cigarette, but even the way that she's posed looks like she's like a 90-year-old woman that has been smoking a pack of cigarettes a day, right? So kind of showing her being older than she actually is, where Sally Mann is having you question, like how old is she? Why would you want to act older than you are? And then in the background, her son is on wooden stilts, and then that's her other daughter turned around. I mean, just absolutely beautiful photographs. And Sally Mann photographs with a large format camera too. So remember in history of photography, those cameras that have the accordion and you have to put the glass negative in, like that's what Sally Mann still uses, and she has a dark room on her property. But yeah. Sally Mann was somebody who, so I did meet Annie Leibovitz and Sally Mann, who like I'm obsessed with. And you know how they say like don't meet your idols? Like so true. I was like so disappointed when I met them. They were like kind of mean and I'm like yeah, so I was pretty bummed about it, but that's okay. I still love their photography, so I'm still a fan, but just beautifully, beautifully shot. Anrong Zhu. So he's a famous contemporary photographer from New York City and Taipei. He likes to explore the Chinese American identity through artwork. And he photographs his grandpa and elders. He's really intrigued by that. And he creates these emotional narratives by looking closer into people's lives. So with Sally Mann doing like young childhood, here we have photographing the more elderly and his grandparents, but even the way this lighting is, and here an old man with an actual cigarette, right? But even the way that they're posing, how they're kind of posing similarly, they're wearing very similar outfits, staring straight ahead, just absolutely beautiful. I feel like he's like like doing a dance or something like that, so just capturing that moment. And here with Annie Leibovitz, we saw that whole background with the large depth of field to show um the living situation, but here the photographer like blurred it out a little bit to focus on grandpa and emotions and what he's doing. I think even like though the book is covering him here, I do still consider this a portrait, but even like sometimes it's funny to have like pictures in front of portraits in a way. um But yeah, just and then it's photographing people in his community as well. So in New York City. So really beautifully, beautifully shot. Like kind of like waiting for a moment, right? Bharat Sika. So he was born and raised in India. He went to Parsons, and he did a series on Indian men. So what he did is he framed the subjects in a very highly stylized manner. And he again only photographed Indian men for this body of work. But like I said, many photographers go through certain phases, and when you go on their websites, like on the left hand side it'll be like Indian men series, and then it might be like elephants, and then it might be so like every photographer goes through um certain parts of their career. um and so he wanted to like show the narrative of the Indian identity, but like using a contemporary format. So again, um, even though it's portraiture, this to me is more considered environmental portraiture, where you might be showing the full body, but the environment that the person is in is helping to define who they are as a person. So again, portraiture is not just from like belly button up. It can be full portrait because portraiture is more telling their story, telling that narrative. And if having the whole environment and the full person in it helps do that, that is allowed. So, again, here we're seeing even like the kitchen with the dog. So this full environment helps to describe who this man is. So, the thing to be careful of is like I've noticed in some of your photographs you're like not as aware of the background as I want you to be. Like here this background helps define who this person is, but we don't see like a cell phone, and we don't see, like the cords for the charger and stuff like that. So just know that like you can do, backgrounds, living rooms, whatever. Just try to like take out technology that dates it, if you know what I mean. Like here, this could be in 1970, this could be in 2022. The technology that you might accidentally photograph in your photos, again, is going to date your photos, and we don't want that. Again, this could be in 1980, this could be in 2022, but again, all those environments help define who the person is. And here, like, even though, yes, this is like a phone, right? But look at this awesome leading line in that leads your eye up here, and then we see this guy. Also getting to the level, so this photographer is not standing and photographing down. Sometimes you have to like get lower and use that worm's eye view. We still have beautiful framing here. So all those things that we have been talking about and you guys have been practicing, like they go into each photograph. So we're building off each of the last photo shoots. Now, if you are like, there's no way I want to photograph someone else, Miss Ortino, that is like not me. I don't want to do it. I get it. You might be one of my self-portraiture people. And I have a few students every year that are really, really, really good at this. And I'm jealous because I'm not. So Cindy Sherman is probably one of the most well-known conceptual self-portrait artists out there. I remember it was like the last day of school, and I flew to New York because she had an exhibition at the Museum of Modern Art there, and I got to see it on the last day. And it's one of the best like Ralph Eugene Meatyard and Cindy Sherman's exhibit at MoMA were probably two of the best photo exhibitions I've ever been to in my life. And Kirsty Mitchell, if you have me in photo two, you're gonna learn about Kirsty Mitchell. Her stuff was awesome. So what she does is she dresses herself up as these different characters, not just like does makeup, but like put on prosthetics, like different noses. She does like different hair. She'll like put on fat suits. She'll dress as a different gender, as a different race, as just like all like like she'll even like put on like press on toenails to look different. Like she goes to the extreme. She'll also photograph people that she sees just walking the streets in New York, and then she'll emulate their look to get inspiration. And she has had so many different series in her life. Like when I was at MoMA, I saw her clown series, the one where she recreates famous paintings, her untitled film stills, which is my favorite one. And she's still making artwork today. So if you follow, you can follow her on Instagram. The most recent photo she put out was really, really weird. She's doing like, she gets weirder and weirder, but like that happens in the art world too. So this is from Untitled Film Stills. So if you like this idea, Untitled Film Stills was has anyone heard of like B movies or know what it like if anyone's into like movies, B movies, anyone know what those are? Okay, so that's awesome. So a B movie is like you don't have a big budget. It might be like Attack of the 8 Foot Spider Woman, and but like it's like really done poorly. Like the scripts aren't that great. There's like no money for like special effects. So that's kind of like what a B movie is. It's not your typical blockbuster. So what Cindy Sherman did was thought of a B movie, thought of like the plot of a movie, and then she's like, okay, I want to take like how in when we learned about the start of photography and how George Eastman made the roll film, she's like, okay, imagine that there's this whole movie on this roll film. I want to take one little frame from that movie, and that's what I want my photo to be like. So it makes the viewer question, okay, what's this whole movie about? What is this single scene? That's what she wanted. So here it's like, okay, it looks like her hair is wet. Why is her hair wet? Who is she looking at? She looks a little scared. What's the story? What's the situation? So it makes you think about that. Um, so this one sold for $3.8 million in 2011. Also from Untitled Film Still. So it's like, okay, what's in her hand? Is it a note? Why does it kind of look like her leg is broken? Like what's happening here? So again, these are all from that where it's like, okay, she looks like she might be in New York, but she looks very like her eyes make it look like she's untrusting of someone, or maybe she saw someone she didn't want to see. What's the story, right? So think about that. This is from her Socialites of New York series. So for this one, this is why I said she photographed people in New York and then recreated their looks for that. The one on the left is from her clown series where she just kept dressing as clown. I know, a weird series to do. If you like this idea, like I literally have a dress like that I bought from a thrift store for an 80s party, like in college. Like you can go through your parents' closet, see if they have fun stuff. I grew up dancing. I have a ton of dance costumes still at my mom's house. Like you can like create these characters that are super fun. Like I have these wigs. You guys can check out wigs if you want to. You can create new characters. That's fun. Or if you're bringing in your friend for a photo shoot, you guys can take the wigs in there and do that. Um, so I talked briefly about the environmental portraiture, but I'm going to go more into it a little more. So Braylon Dion is a photographer and filmmaker. For him, his goal is to change the narrative of how Black people can be displayed in media. And he's really well known for his environmental portraiture. So again, environmental portraiture is when the background helps describe who the person is. Or it might be where they live. It might be what their job is. It might be what they're into. So, I love how like all these leading lines are like bringing you to this guy, but then, it might be telling us the story of this is, the local corner shop that this guy might be going to. And what do we think this guy's job is or his hobby is? Music, right. So, if your friend has like a cool job, like maybe you're going to go there and photograph them. This looks like her community where she lives. But again, I don't see the car parked on Oakton, right? Because he went to the side and faced the houses. I'm seeing a lot of parked cars in your photograph, so make sure we don't. I've always, my life goal is to do a photo shoot at a laundromat. I just think they're the coolest place ever to photograph. And so this is the guy again from the record store, and your portraiture can include two people. That's okay as well. But like even just having kind of like, you get a sense of what the houses are like on this block. But I love like what they're wearing and how she's looking forward. The lighting is so beautiful, really beautifully done. Tyler Mitchell is someone that I saw talk at Adobe Max, which is that conference I'm going to next week. So he's a photographer and filmmaker from Brooklyn, New York. He was the first Black man to shoot the cover of American Vogue, which is amazing. He shoots themes of representation and social justice and explores new aesthetics of Blackness. So this was Beyonce. Amazing work that he's doing. So these are not environmental portraitures. These are just like beautifully shot. The what type of depth of field for the one with the pink? Small depth of field, right. So, in my personal preference, when I do portraiture photography, I do like to have a really, really blown out, a shallow depth of field, like a f 3.5, because I do want to focus on the person. Um, He's also more like fashion photography too. So think about what your model is wearing, like hats, glasses, stuff like that. Like whoever your most fashionable friend is. Like if you're like, hey, like I've had kids go in there and their friends have like 3 outfit changes, and I'm like, go for it, like do that. I This is a great trick if you don't have a good background. If they just hold like a pattern umbrella, it's a great way to add pattern without having to worry about your background. And again, also, like you can get a little lower. I love the angle of this shot. Little side story. When I was in high school, my mom made me get a job, and I'm like, well, the only thing I like is photography. She's like, go find something. There was this place called Picture People at Oakbrook Mall, and I used to work there. And I had to photograph kids all day, and it was like a nightmare. But there's certain shots that we had to get. So we had to get one from above looking down, and whatever that shot did, it made the kid look more innocent. So when you photograph someone from above looking down, they look more innocent. If you're below looking up, it's going to make them look bigger and more intimidating. So you can also consider the angle that you're going to photograph. And so, like, if it was a kid that I really didn't like, I'm like, okay, let me get low and like shoot you up so you look more intimidating so your parents know like how much of a monster you are. But so we had to do like all these different shoots. But photographing below up, it's going to make them look more powerful or more intimidating. So just be aware of that. Dario Calmese is also somebody who I saw at Adobe Max. His session was one of my most famous one, or not famous, the most favorite one from that Adobe Max that I went to. I love that he's like, a lot of photographers are also like artists, writers, dancers. We're all kind of like mixed in, and it allows us to look at things a little differently. Um, so again, he trained in performing arts. As he photographs people, he does a lot of research beforehand on like what he's inspired by and what the message is. It's not like just photographing someone. It's like, okay, I researched this, and this was a famous pose, or this was a goddess that I wanted to make her look like. So this is, so he's very researched. His whole studio is like books basically. And then in 2020, he made history as the first Black photographer to shoot a cover for Vanity Fair with his portrait of Viola Davis. And I'm going to show you a little clip from that, which is awesome. And here we go. Oh, no. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. You guys. Oh! I'm gonna have to find this video because it is the greatest thing. So basically, I'm so mad. It is such a good video. So basically, I'll just try to explain it in a little bit, but it's not as good as him explaining it at all. But basically, the pose was inspired by in this historical book that he had. There's a famous photograph of a black enslaved man who had scars on his back from the whippings. And so he showed us the picture that he was inspired by, and he wanted to like showcase her back that way and the beauty of it. But also the pose of her was inspired by this like very powerful like pose of a powerful woman. So he had that, and then the blue also represented this like power and royalty. But also, he said like, as a Black photographer, it's important that I know how to photograph the Black skin of the people that I'm photographing. So it is such a good video, and I'm so mad that the link didn't work, but I will try to find it for you guys because it's just amazing the research that goes into a photograph. But he also knew that this was going to be a really important. Oh, and also, he's like, I realize that it's a darker photograph because he's like, I want the viewer to get closer to the picture, to look at the detail of the hair. He's like, I didn't want it to be bright, so he purposefully did that. Oh, it was such a good session. So this is also why I'm like, oh god, Adobe Max is like the greatest thing ever, because I get to hear stories like that. So this is more from Dario's. Again, so like even that he's wearing this white shirt, the contrast against the black, we can see the studio lighting and his glasses there. Really, really nice. And then just like again, like just fashion, people living their lives, sometimes background, sometimes very portrait studio inspired backgrounds. I think that's Spike Lee, right? Yeah. And oh my god, what's his name? What? Billy Porter. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so for your assignment options, there you can do generations, which means you can shoot anybody. You can do the conceptual self-portraiture, or you can do fashion environmental. And again, the reason I put that self-portraiture in, there's a interview with Cindy Sherman that I love, where she's basically just like, I don't want to talk to anyone else. I am like not collaborative. I don't want to do that. So like, if you're collaborative, the generations are really good, or even like the fashion, is really good if you're collaborative. And again, if you don't want to really talk to anyone, your cameras have self timer on it, and you can certainly do that. So let's get to some student examples. So these are all examples from my previous students. So you can do portraiture with a message, right? So here, the caution tape around the mouth is, it can either be that what you're saying is being censored, and this one won. This one won a big award. I think this, yeah. So this one is classical key. This one also hung in the Capitol building for a year. Hey, let's go. Okay, so this was picture of grandma, right? But this effect is a posterization effect, which is an edit that you're going to learn how to do. So I love this example. This is very Sally Mann vibes, right? With even the way, like these look like probably like middle school kids, but even the way that they're posing is making, they're trying to look a lot older than they actually are. Just, like the makeup is beautiful. Plus, also think about, like, I love when like the model is wearing something cultural, like something from your culture, like showcase off traditional clothing. I think that's what makes this community so special, is you guys come from so many different backgrounds. And I love when you express like your background, your heritage, your beliefs, and your photography. So I 100% encourage that. Um, so a lot of kids ask, can we do more than one person? Yes, you can. But again, just make sure that there's like a reason for having that many people. Like I love that they're all kind of dressed the same. They all have like the same sunglasses. It really works within it. Think about your background. The fact that this says battle scars on it and she's like looking down, and the edit on it is really nice. And Mike Wheeler went on to become a graphic designer. So, here's two people, but, did a shallow depth of field because, like, wanted to focus more on this. Again, don't forget the angle. He's lower shooting up, so the person's going to look more intimidating, right? But still beautiful lighting on it. So this is a duotone effect that you guys are going to learn. Kevin Dill just finished his art education degree and taught summer school at Niles North this summer, which is really exciting that my students are like becoming photo teachers. So, yeah, so this is a duotone effect that you guys are going to learn how to do. Again, you can be inspired by like a decade. So this is like very 70s vibe. I know like the 90s are coming back, and again, like, so this is full body, but like it totally works because his whole outfit, I feel like, helps describe this person. Again, I prefer photos where like the person's not smiling, or maybe they're like laughing, but like a fake smile. Don't forget, think about me, or that smile is that mask we put on for the camera. We want to really know who that person is. So, trying not to do that. Reflections are great. Looks like she's in a dance recital. This was at, I think, Evanston Beach. Um, this is again is like that duotone filter. Again, two people can be in it. This is at East Prairie. I love that. Like, also, this is great if like you have siblings or little cousins that have like their Halloween costumes. I'm sure if you're like, hey, you want to put on your Halloween costume and I can photograph you, or like, if you have like a prom dress or a homecoming dress you spent a ton of money on and haven't worn again, like, think about like things that you can wear. So this one is inspired by Cindy Sherman's Untitled Film Stills, where, like she even put like makeup on her neck to look like, like hand marks, or like she was maybe like choked or something, where you're like, oh my gosh, what's the story? What happened? And then she has this like, really expensive necklace on. So it's like making you think of like, what is the story? Listen, if you have no one to photograph, grandma, mom, dad, whoever, like ask your family to do it. I love just like everything here works together so beautifully. The shirt, the background, how she's posed, the rule of thirds. Don't forget about your composition. Great environmental portraiture. So what do you think this teacher teaches? Chinese, right. So she's a Chinese teacher. So photographing your teachers in their classrooms, do not photograph me, but other people is fine. From untitled film stills, it's like, her hands on her stomach. Was she pregnant? Is she dead? She has the ring like she's married, but who killed it? Did her husband kill her? Like, what's the story? So, always thinking about that kind of stuff. So, the instructions are here. Um, this you are only going to need 16 portraits from above, because the other 4 photos you're going to do are going to be self portraits. However, I'm going to get to the self portrait aspect next week. You don't have to worry about it because I'm going to show you what all the self portrait, like, we're going to do a full on self portrait crazy kind of edit project with this. So I want to show you the options for that so that you know how to photograph that better. But again, it's going to be 16 portraits of either generations, altered or conceptual self-portraits, or fashion and environmental portraiture. If you don't know how to turn on your self timer, this video is going to help you. You can mix and match from the options. The face should be visible. There are some kids that do portraiture with like from behind the head, and I'm like, that doesn't really make sense. You can use aperture priority if you want for this. Again, that shallow depth of field is going to look really nice. Natural lighting is going to look really nice. Trying to show emotion. Your clothing is really, really important. So again, no Niles West soccer hoodies, the plainer or patterns or stuff like that is really good. If you're going to photograph people in the portrait studio, again, you can have them bring a change of outfit, and that facial expression is really important. For the okay, I think that is all I'm going to go through today. I will do the 4 self portraits. I'll just show you guys some examples of what's going to be happening. You can do a digital painting on top of your self portraiture. So, and especially if you're at a Cintiq monitor, you can do that. But I know some people are not digital drawers, and that's okay. Because I'm going to show you some other options. That one was like a collage, but these are all my digital painting ones. So there's more options, so don't worry. Okay, so digital painting is an option. Some other options that you can do are weaving. So it's you cut your 2 different photographs into strips, and then you weave them together. So this is like if you're very much like a hands-on kind of person, this would kind of be for you. It is really fun to do. I do like doing the weaving a lot. And then the last one is deconstruction. So deconstruction would be when you cut it apart and then you put it back together in a new way. And you might have to cut like multiple versions of your photo, but it's like kind of fun to put it back together in a new way. And the reason we're manipulating your self portrait is I feel really badly if it's like you photograph someone and then you're like cutting their face up and everything. I feel like it's better to be you. So, you're gonna have 2 weekends to work on this, so it's probably gonna be due like 2 weeks Friday. And don't forget, meet your contact sheet. You can give to me on Monday. Okay, cool. Any comments, questions, concerns?